I said on Friday's episode that the St. Louis Blues were going to go after Jim Montgomery, who was recently just fired from the Boston Bruins. Well, now he is the Blues' head coach. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Blues.
Hey, this is Braden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So big news happened over the weekend as the St. Louis Blues hired Jim Montgomery as their new head coach. He used to be an assistant coach here with Berube, and fired Drew Bannister. So was this the right move for the Blues and 3 coaches in 1 year? What is my breakdown of everything that has happened behind the bench with the St. Louis team? We have a lot to discuss on today's episode of Locked On Blues. And personally, I have to tell you, I have like a sigh of relief, honestly, because when the Blues lost to and I'll get into this, when they lost to the Islanders, that's when I was like, nope, I'm done. And then luckily things changed. So as I said, today is a busy episode of Locked On Blues, but you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So a lot has happened in St. Louis. So the St. Louis Blues let go of Drew Bannister following the loss against those New York Islanders. And I did tell you that if they lost against the Islanders, I was going to be really upset and that a coaching change should happen. They did lose to the Islanders, and I know that I'm not going to talk much about that game because, well, it's kind of irrelevant right now because it's like you have a new coach, like things change, but it was a bad loss in my opinion. It was a 3-1 loss. So yesterday I wake up on Sunday and it's a tweet from the Blues. The Blues released Drew Bannister and have hired Jim Montgomery to a 5-year contract. My initial thoughts when I first saw that were, I'm not surprised. This is the right decision to make. 5 years does seem like a long time. However, we all know how things go in hockey land, so you never know. But my overall reaction about this, and I'll get into if this was the right move in the next segment, was that a change had to happen. Drew Bannister clearly was not succeeding as head coach. Now, again, I think that he could find himself in a great position with an AHL team again, like he was in Springfield. But I feel like on the NHL level, maybe it's not for him yet. Okay. I always feel badly when these things happen because it is somebody's job that did get taken away, but he's still going to make his money. So it is a business at the end of the day, and this team needs to win. I loved when Jim Montgomery was here as the assistant coach from 2020 to 2022. And he's happy to be back here with the Blues. That's the great thing about it. He even said, crazy, there's no words for it. And talked about everything that happened with, Doug Armstrong calling him. And he said, I worked with over half of the lineup already, and I know how committed they are. For me, this is a no-brainer for me to come back home. And I think that's a beautiful thing that, Jim did say, because at the end of the day, he did acknowledge the fan base of St. Louis. He said these are blue-collared people that deserve to have a blue-collar team, a team that works hard, a team that, that does it all. And I think that coming back to St. Louis, I know that this place did mean a lot for him. I mean, he did play here for the Blues, mind you. So he has a lot of history with this team. And I think that him, honestly, coming back to the Blues, I know that he didn't play here for that long, honestly. He played here for 1 season, but he still played for 67 games. So that means something. But I think for him to come back here where he did find such success as an assistant head coach, which then landed him to the position to be the head coach of the Boston Bruins. And I feel like Boston did him so dirty. So he guided the Bruins to a record-setting 65-win season, 135-point season in 2022-2023. And he was also named Coach of the Year. So you might be wondering, Haley, why did Boston get rid of him? My personal take and my own opinion on this one, it's not because he's not qualified. It's not because he's not good enough. The coach is always the first one to blame when things go wrong. And it is frustrating, right? Because he is a good coach, but I mean, it allowed the Blues to get him back. It's so weird, right? About what happened to the Bruins in that season. And I just think about that a lot. Like, that was a really weird season for the Boston Bruins. And I'll talk more about that because I feel like you need to have like the backstory of why the Bruins kind of went. As a certified Bruins hater, it was awesome to see them lose in the first round to the Florida Panthers. Mind you, um, it was not good. Okay. And the Bruins losing to the Panthers, I'm not going to say that set them back, but they were the best team. Now, sometimes teams don't play well in the playoffs, and we know anything can happen. We know better than anybody else. But it was one of those things where I do look back and I'm like, okay, maybe that kind of like rubbed the wrong note with some people in Boston. I don't know. But this season, the Bruins definitely are not playing as well. I mean, Bruins fans are annoyed about it. But I've never heard one Bruins fan say that they should fire Jim Montgomery. That just does not make sense. And again, when you have your team setting the President's Trophy, like you have the best record last season. Okay, things weren't so great for them either. Okay, but it wasn't the coach. These GMs in the front offices make decisions. We saw that here in St. Louis with Craig Berube. Again, it's very similar to Boston though. You have a coach that does such great things and is a great qualified coach. But because the players and the roster that you decided, because again, that's on the front office's end, doesn't play well, it's on the coach. Now, I can say about, and I'll get into the Drew Bannister thing, but do I think he had the best lines? No. Do I think the team responded to him? No, I don't. That's my opinion. I was around the guys almost a month ago at this point. I just didn't feel that same kind of connection that they had when they were under Craig Berube. However, I don't know what goes on in that locker room because I was only in there for such a short amount of time. But even when media is in locker rooms, you're not going to get the full picture. But you can tell on the ice if players are responding and they are not responding, they're digressing. And that's the problem. This team was projected to be a playoff contending team heading into the season. And I have to tell you, they look worse than ever. I'm going to be honest. Like, they do not look good. So there is something that they needed to do. Jim Montgomery went on and said, when you get a phone call and you hear Doug Armstrong's plan and how you're a big part of it, that makes you feel like it's the right place to go to. The best line that he put in his books to me was, when something delicious falls on my plate, I eat. I don't know. I guess I was a T-bone that day. Now, that was funny, and that's a very typical Dougie A situation, Dougie A move. But I think that the point is that Doug Armstrong made a decision that was best for the Blues. There are so many other teams in the NHL that I heard rumors about them being interested in Jim. And I think that, honestly, you can only try so long with a coach that the team is not responding to. I knew at the end of last season when Doug didn't name Drew Bannister as the head coach, right? And he was like, he's one of the guys that I was thinking about, blah, blah, blah. He probably had somebody else's name in mind. Maybe it was Chief Keef. I don't know who he had. Sheldon Keefe, by the way, in case you don't know the nickname. But I kind of figured that it was like a backup plan, and I kind of figured that he wouldn't be here all season. Now, I did say maybe December, January, but then obviously the timeline of everything got kind of sped up a little bit when obviously he gets hired. So I think that this was a good move. And I think that this is a move that's going to help the team succeed. Now, I'm going to talk to you about why I think this was the right move for the Blues, because I truly do believe that. But first, I'm going to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, was this the right moves that the St. Louis Blues made? Hiring former assistant coach for the Blues, hiring former head coach of the Boston Bruins, Jim Montgomery. My answer, yes. And I think it's a very obvious one. I think that Jim is ecstatic to be here. He said once a Blue, always a Blue before he began his press conference today, which goes to show me as a Blues fan, as somebody that reports on this team, that this was the right decision. Whenever you open up a press conference and you're able to say, I feel like I'm back home again. My wife was so happy. She was crying. Like all these things, it shows me that he truly does want to be here. And while, the money and all that is good and, the 5-year contract's awesome, it does, it makes me feel better knowing that he does want to be here. And I think that is a true, honest reaction that Jim Montgomery did say. And Doug said, that he even spoke to the captains and he spoke to different players about this. And I think honestly, this decision that was made was the right call. I do. I feel like there has been a lack of leadership in the locker room, not from Braden Shen, but just from coaches, right? And I think that having Montgomery in here, I mean, he knows this team. He knows a lot of what this team does. He knows Braden Shen, Thomas, Kyrou, Bushi. Like he knows so many players. And I think that is the thing that makes me feel even better about this is that he does know the guys that have been here. Now, through Bannister, who knew a lot of the younger guys, due to the fact that he was the Thunderbirds coach, right? But the nice thing about Montgomery is that, and Doug Armstrong even attested to this, is that he has the ability to get the most out of a team's top players, and that's one of his biggest assets. And Armstrong went on to saying, having that relationship with a top player is certainly a benefit for the coach. I think the top players also respond to coaching in his job to get the best out of them. He's done that in the past. He's done it with players in Dallas because he did coach the Dallas Stars for a period, okay? And they had an excellent team there. He's done it with the guys in Boston, and we feel like he can do it here. So I personally am very excited about it. I do feel like this is something that is going to really enhance this team. And I'm going to talk more about the 3 coaches in 1 year in my coming up segment. And I'll talk a little bit about Bannister. But when it comes to this Blues team, you have a coach that's able to get players to respond. We have not seen players respond the way that we should, right? Bushi, I feel like, hasn't responded that well. Shenny, not as well. I mean, Thomas, I know he was injured. Kyrou, we can always expect more out of him in the less turnovers. Neighbors, we need more out of. Zachary Bolduc, we need more out of. Holloway. Like, essentially, I could name every single player in this team and say I have higher expectations, and that is the issue. Okay? That is the issue. When I said he played 6 seasons with the Blues, by the way. I don't know why. No, not 6 seasons, 1 season with the Blues, by the way. Did I mention that? I did mention that he played 1 season with the Blues. But I think most importantly, though, is that he just knows how to make teams look good. Stars, right? The Bruins, even assisting the Blues and working with Craig Berube. And that's another thing that makes me feel better, honestly, is the fact that he did work with Craig Berube. And the Blues also have Claude Julien, by the way, as one of their assistants, who used to be an assistant on Boston's bench. So it seems to me like we just get the best from all these teams. Like, we get Boston's coaching. We got, the offer sheets this season from Edmonton. Like, the Blues have been making moves in the NHL, but I do feel like this move was the right move. And you couldn't continue on with Drew Bannister. You couldn't. Now, do I think they should have fired Craig Berube all along? No, but we wouldn't be in this situation. And it sucks, right? Because a year ago, like, Craig Berube was still here coaching this team, but the Blues had to go in a different direction. They played the New York Rangers tonight. And I'll talk, you know what? Let me talk about that really fast because, again, these lines are going to be different, okay, under Montgomery. And he basically said today, right? To me, this is an offensive slanted team, and it just shows you how hard it is to score. We got to get the details and being in the right areas, the hard areas at the right times to be able to score, but we have the ability to score more goals. So let me go tell you about the projected lineup for tonight because it is a little different, not too crazy. But up front, we have on that first line, left wing is Bushi, centering is Robert Thomas, on the right is Jake Neighbors. Second line, centering is Captain Braden Shen, on the left is Brandon Saad, on the right is Jordan Kyrou. Third line, Oscar Sundquist centering, on the left, Dylan Holloway, on the right, Bolduc. Finally, the fourth line, Foxa centering, on the left, Torbachenko, on the right, Nathan Walker. So what do I like about this? Honestly, I like a couple things. I really enjoy that third line with Sonny centering and Holloway and Bolduc. So I do like that a lot. I do feel like that is important, and sometimes you do have to switch things up a little bit. So that to me was nice. And I think that, with Neighbors and Kyrou swapping spots, it is what it is. You need to try out new things. And I personally like when Jake Neighbors plays with Robert Thomas. That's my personal preference. I have always been that way. And I feel like they bring out the best in each other. So why not put them together? Like, that's what makes sense logically, right? On defense, we have Ryan Suter with Colton Parayko. So nothing changed at that. Then in the second pairing, we have Perunovic with Justin Folk. And then finally, in that final pairing, we have P.O. Joseph and Matthew Kessel. And Joel Hofer does get the start in net. So I do like this. And again, you can't do much with defense just because of like the injuries and things like that. But even just swapping, and I go back to this, but having Kyrou and Neighbors swap, that to me is a really smart decision. And here's the thing. He talked more about his coaching philosophy. As a coach, you coach for today, but I'm also coaching for tomorrow. So there's going to be a balance of what do we need to do to be competitive right now without losing the sight of the development of the team. And the team is always going to be first. The blue note is always going to be first. And that's our team's identity. And not letting the standard that we set slip from our structure point. And then there's some players that need to play. Learning how to win in this league is part of development. And I think that is a true testament. Is this team going to change overnight? No, they're not. But I do like what he is saying and acknowledging that there is a developmental side to this game for some of these younger players on the Blues. Because if they don't play, if they don't learn how to win, they're never going to succeed in the NHL, let alone here in St. Louis. So I'm going to talk more about the 3 coaches in a year because that was a thing that happened. I know who saw that one coming. But first, my friends over at PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your players doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as little as 15 minutes. I can also get my money through Venmo, or I can even deposit my money through Venmo. PrizePicks makes it that easy, okay? So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like a Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. So this week, I'm looking at doing this. Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal. And honestly, that's very possible. You can get a Thanksgiving free square too. For Tyreek Hill only needs to receive half a receiving yard for the projection to hit. If you're correct at least one more stat projection, you could win real cash. So no brainer. So this is what you need to do. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The St. Louis Blues had 3 coaches in 1 year. I know, crazy. Drew Bannister being fired was the second of the season, I believe. Yes. So, Blues, I know, but this was the right decision. I honestly think it's actually kind of insane, though, that this is what's going on with our team. But again, you have to really trust what Doug Armstrong is doing, and I certainly trust him. I think that this was the best possible decision, okay? Doug also talked about talking to Drew Bannister and said, when I talked to Drew today, I told him there was more based on the availability of someone I think is a top NHL coach. Someone that we have experience and someone that I really do believe can coach this team and coach this team to reach its ultimate level of competitiveness. And at the end of the day, I appreciate the transparency that Armstrong did have with Drew Bannister. He said he's done that. He's worked with younger players in the United States Hockey League and coached and had good success in Dallas, good success in Boston. So he's one of those coaches I do believe can be with this team as it grows. I think the proof of that is the 5-year commitment. One of the things I think is the next part for Jim's career is to get the longevity in one spot. Armstrong also said, our season to date has fluctuated. We're going to have a hard time on both ends of our special team and scoring goals, and that's obviously not a good recap to have success. I think having Letty and Broberg out at the same time is something that we have to deal with. And we've seen growth from certain players, but I think those 2 guys will help stabilize things. And again, it's a shame. It really is, because I feel like, again, and I hate to be so repetitive, but if they never got rid of Craig Berube, then we wouldn't be in the situation with having 3 coaches in 1 year. So I always ask you on Locked On Blues, which is where you can find all of your daily St. Louis Blues information. And let me go pull it up. It's at Locked On Blues on X. And I said, Are you happy with the coaching changes the Blues made? Somebody's like, changes, there's only one change. Change is you fire one coach, change, you hire a new coach. Change is, okay? Locked On Cardinals says, let's go Blues. I'm the same way. A lot of replies. Scott said it the best. When you have the opportunity to make the team better, do it. 100%. Mike also said, very happy. I do feel for Drew here, though. He definitely got a raw deal. Hopefully that paycheck will keep his spirits high. I agree. And I've had the privilege to talk to Drew Bannister less than a month ago about this team and where I saw, where this team was heading and all that. And I have to tell you, he honestly got just such a bad deal and was put in such a bad situation. As I said, he was fine with the Thunderbirds. He did a great job developing the younger guys down there. But if I could say anything to you that might be like, oh, who cares about this guy? I don't believe he was ever going to succeed or stay here long term. And it's just a shame because he's going to be painted as a coach that just could never get this team to win. And while that's true, and he did have good, strives to the playoffs, it just wasn't good. He went 39, 31, and 6 in 76 games after replacing Berube on December 14th. He went 93, 58, and 19 coaching Springfield. And he guided them to consecutive Calder Cup appearances, including the finals in 2022. So obviously, it's just a shame because he did succeed with the Thunderbirds, but when it came to the Blues, he just couldn't find his rhythm, ironically, right? Rhythm and blues. But the Blues do play tonight, so I will be watching that. But again, what a crazy weekend. And I did say that on the podcast too. And that was the first tweet I made was like, oh my God, I predicted this. It just seemed to be obvious. Whatever the reason is, coaches, players love being here in St. Louis. And it's special. It shows how special everything here in St. Louis is. That's why I'm a fan. I don't even live here and I'm like the biggest Blues fan. There's just something special about this team in the Blue Note. So on that being said, to end today's episode, I am very happy that the Blues hired Jim Montgomery. Very happy about that. I'm happy that he has a good relationship with some of the older players. And most importantly, I'm excited about the new direction this team can go on. It's November 25th. It's still early. They can still turn things around. I'm not panicked now because I feel like there is a plan. He talked about his excitement to work with Alexander Steen. And like all of these things just make me as a fan feel excited. So this is going to be a good direction for the Blues. I'm going to be positive and not too negative. But let's watch some hockey tonight. And like always, let's go Blues.